There are so many videos, blogs, content online, all over social media, information out there about using a breast pump to increase your milk supply. And there's certainly a place for this. You'll find a lot of those same videos here on our channel. But we really need to talk about today how using a breast pump can actually decrease your milk supply. And that's what we're going to tackle in this video. If you're new here, my name is Allison Tolman. I'm a nurse, lactation consultant, and breast pump expert. And I help career-driven working moms protect their milk supply by using a breast pump fast and efficiently to meet their breastfeeding goals even after returning to work. So if that's you and you want to come work with me, you can find more details in the description on how to learn more. But the reason I chose this topic today is this is actually why I created my signature program in the first place and why I'm working in the space that I am today. When I went back to work after my first baby, we had worked really, really hard to create a solid milk supply while breastfeeding on maternity leave, which I know, like a lot of you, was not actually a very easy thing to do with your first baby. And I was really proud of that. I knew I wanted to breastfeed for at least a year. And so I knew I had to pump at work. Now, I'm not going to share my whole story here. I will put another video up top and in the description for you if you actually want to hear that whole back to work story and more details on what happened and why I'm doing what I'm doing. But it did not go like planned, okay? It actually started out okay, but despite having a consistent pumping schedule and my own office, training as a nurse and lactation counselor, I was not able to pump enough for him. And by the end of that year mark, we were supplementing about half of his milk at daycare with formula, although we were breastfeeding fine on the nights and weekends. So I had the milk there, I just wasn't getting it out well enough with a pump. And most moms that join my program and come work with me have milk supply questions. I think this is one of the biggest questions that moms have. And it's actually quite common that we determine that there's not actually a milk supply problem. The milk is there, we're just not getting it out with the breast pump. And this is really, really common. In fact, actually, I made another video on this, which I'll put everywhere. And also I'll put this one at the end for you to watch next because it's talking about low milk supply versus low pumping output and how these are not always the same thing. Your milk supply could be fine, you just might not be able to get it out well with a pump. And if this continues, if you're still not able to get it out well with a pump and effectively really empty the breast, this is where we start to see your milk supply actually go down, right? So it might not be that low milk supply caused the pumping output, but poor pumping output can absolutely cause low milk supply and kind of be a detriment to your breastfeeding journey altogether. So this is what we don't want, okay? Our goal is to help you use a breast pump to your advantage to maintain and sometimes even increase milk supply. So how do we do that? Here, I'm going to share 6 ideas for you to help avoid that happening. We don't want your breast pump to actually decrease your supply. We want to maintain it or increase it. All right, so here we go. Number 1, we got to get the right breast pump. So if you are a working mom who's balancing feeding at the breast and pumping, I actually have a webinar that I want you to go watch. It'll be in the description and up top for you on the best breast pumps for working moms, because we really need to dive into some specific brands and what not to do and what to do and that kind of thing. So that'll be a really good place for you to start if you're looking for the right pump or multiple pumps. We talk about that too. In our Facebook group, this is kind of like the main focus of like finding the right pump. And what I see a lot of moms doing is they're looking for the perfect pump for them, right? There's one out there and they just have to find it. And I don't think this is super realistic, to be honest, because there's a lot of pumps out there and there's a lot of them that will work well in your situation. So it's really about finding a good one for you. Maybe even 2. If you're a working mom, you might need 2. But so don't feel so much pressure to find like the perfect pump for you. We're really looking for something that is good and that will work. I do want to throw out a caution about wearable pumps. In general, a wearable pump is not a great idea for your primary pump, especially if you're using the breast pump to maintain a supply and empty you effectively, like for instance, working moms are, which is again, like the population that I work with. You are heavily relying on a breast pump to maintain your milk supply while you are not with your baby. And wearable pumps, they do work sometimes, and you'll hear people being like, oh yeah, I used an LV for my whole time and it was perfect. And that's great, but these scenarios are usually the outliers, or they usually started them really early, or there was just a combination of factors that went into that. So in general, if you've been mostly feeding at the breast and we're trying to find a pump to go back to work, a wearable pump has a place. And we talk about this more in the webinar, but it's not a great solution for your only or primary pump. until you really understand pumping and know how to use a pump effectively, know what to watch for, know the signs that it's not working. So just a little caution there, unless you're working with someone who can really help you through that. Also, we do that. So if you need help, let me know. Okay, number 2, you've got to be using the right settings. And every pump is a little bit different. There's a lot of different settings, I get it. And this becomes especially tricky if you are combination feeding at the breast and pumping, because your milk supply and your letdown and your hormones and all of these things are kind of conditioned to working with a baby. And then if you put on a pump that is drastically different from what your baby does, it can cause a lot of problems. So really finding the right settings can be crucial. Another scenario where this becomes tricky is if you have more than one pump. As you know, the pumps vary widely in their cycle speeds, in their strength, in their settings, in their capabilities, in their patterns. Like everything is, there's just such a wide variety. So if you have, 2 pumps or more than 2, and you're like going back and forth a lot, you might see some inconsistencies there. So really finding the right settings on that are the most similar on all the pumps that you have can actually make a huge difference in the output, because then you don't have to retrain your body to these different settings and cycles and things like that. If you can just find them similarly, you can. So I have like a wonderful little spreadsheet, has all of the data in it that I have. You could just bloopity bloop, punch it in, and it does it right across for you on the pumps, which is really cool. We have that inside our Working Moms program and also in our professionals course, if that's interesting to you. But finding the right settings is important in getting good output. Number 3, this is a big one, and this is finding a good flange size. And we've talked about this before, and I know you know that this is a thing, and because we see it a lot more everywhere now. Like people are talking about this both in the lactation community and in the mom community. So if this is the first time you're hearing about flange sizing, you can go watch a video that we have, Flange Sizing 101. That'll really walk you through what that is, why it's important, and some tips and tricks on how to go about finding the right size. There is also extensive education about this inside our program, and you can work with me and my team of experts to like really find the right one for you. I don't know if you knew this as kind of a side note, but your flange size can change throughout your pumping experience. So it's actually really common that we help size someone on maternity leave before they're going back to work, and we find a good size and it's working for a while. And then 3 months later, they came back and say like, man, this is different, or like I'm getting a little bit less output. Okay, let's check your flange size again. A lot of times it's a little bit different, and this can happen. There's some crucial times, 3, 6, 9, 12 months. Those are all really common times for your flange size to change a little bit as things progress. And so it's a complicated thing to do. It's not just like a one-time consult and then you're good to go. It really takes a lot of understanding on how it's working, why it's working, and things like that. Now, you can pump milk with a flange that is too big, which is actually what I was doing when I went back to work after my first baby and milk came out. And so I thought, things must be working well. But I can almost guarantee that you are leaving milk behind. Even if you feel fairly emptied afterwards, or you're like, oh, I got enough to feed my baby, great. If you're using a size that is like that came with the box or that is too big, it's just not going to empty you all the way. What does this tell your milk supply? What does this tell your body, right? So it's telling it, oh, I needed only about 80% of that milk. The 20% I didn't need. You don't need to make that next time. And that is a bad cycle to be in. And that's how poor pumping can decrease your milk supply. It's not actually that a breast pump is decreasing your milk supply. It's that using it incorrectly, and this goes beyond the pump into the flange kit and all of these things, is affecting your supply in a bad way. So flange sizing is really important. I know I didn't cover enough on that topic in like 2 minutes, but there's more information in a lot of places. And like I said, you can come work with us too. Okay. Number 4 is getting an effective letdown. And actually, one thing I'm grateful for about having done this and been in this space for a while is we have videos on everything. So if you want more information on letdowns, you can find that video down below in the description too. We have actually a couple. And getting multiple letdowns with a pump is different than with a baby. And with a breast pump, it often requires more thought and effort. When you're feeding at the breast, these letdowns kind of just happen. A lot of that is because like biology works, like for the most part. But the hormones that come for a letdown are a little bit easier with your baby. Your baby's mouth is designed to bring that on quickly. Your baby can also adapt really quickly to, oh, the milk is slowing down, and it will pick up the suction a little bit and elicit another letdown. And these are not things that you as the mother usually have to think about. The baby just does this intuitively, and your breast and your baby are designed to work together. So you can imagine that when you put a device, a manual device that you control on, you have to be a little bit more thoughtful and intentional about how you're using that and what's happening at the breast, because it's not going to adapt in real time like a baby is. Does that make sense? Letdowns are important when you're pumping, and getting multiple letdowns is also really important. Only about 50 to 60% of the milk that's in the breast is let down and expressed with the first letdown. So if you're only having one letdown, you're pumping till the milk stops and then you're taking it off, it's likely that you are leaving milk behind. And again, what does this tell your milk supply? It tells your body that you don't need that milk and it can start making less. So also a really important part of making sure that your breast pump is not decreasing your supply. Okay, number 5. It is really important to understand your milk supply, what is normal and abnormal. And this is actually a huge focus inside of our program, because even just knowing what to expect can take that mental load off of your brain. And if you're pumping like a normal amount, but you're stressed it's not enough, you're like, I don't know what's normal. I don't know what my breast can do. I haven't explored my breast milk capacity. Like, I don't understand what's happening here. That is not going to be good. It's only going to cause problems for you and stress and anxiety, which we know also affects your milk supply. So I think it's really important to have a thorough understanding of your milk supply, what's normal and abnormal. And this varies for everybody. So trying to figure out what's normal can be hard. But if you understand in a more in-depth way what's happening and what you shouldn't be happening, it can make this a lot easier and actually make pumping more effective, because we don't want you pumping longer than you have to, especially if you're a working mom, because you just don't have time for that stuff. You have a job and you have a baby and motherhood and a career and family and all of these things that you're juggling. So we don't want to waste time pumping, right? We want it to be fast and efficient, which is our goal. And understanding your milk supply and how to manipulate it is a huge part of pumping proficiently. And then number 6, we really have to understand the mental aspects of pumping. And I'm actually going to film another video right after this, because I've been meaning to for a long time, about the mental parts of pumping, because it's not just a plug and play deal. You can't just slap a breast pump on, push go, and expect it to maintain your milk supply sufficiently. Sometimes it just works like that. Sometimes people just make and express milk easily, or the situation that they're in, their birth, their feeding experience up till now, the pump that they got, all just kind of lined up. They put it on and it just works. I would say that is not the norm, especially if you are using a breast pump to maintain your milk supply. If you are mostly at home with your baby, feeding at the breast, and you're kind of just like pumping here and there, it might not matter as much, and you might not really notice or even care if it's like working 80%, right? But if you're using a pump long term to keep up your milk supply, it matters. 80% is not good enough. Your body will then adjust to have that be the new normal. And then if you're still only getting 80%, it's going to adjust again. And this is where you see that cycle go down and down and down and down. And that is stressful. We know that the stress hormones are in direct opposition to those that create and let down milk. So if you are stressed, if you're like worried about every drop coming out, if this whole thing is stressful to you, you're not going to make and release milk easily, which then begins an uphill battle with you and your pump. I know what you're doing is stressful. I know it's a lot to manage, and I know that you're doing the best that you can and trying to figure this out. It's probably why you're here, and especially if you're still here on this video that went longer than I wanted it to. Sorry about that. It's because you are looking for something more. You're looking for help and advice, and you might be struggling. If that's you, please just come talk to me and my team. We would love to talk with you, really dive into what your biggest struggles are. And then if we can help, we would love to do that. If we can't help you, we'll direct you somewhere that can. We're not in the business of just enrolling everybody ever. That's why we have an application-based program and curriculum, because I want to work with the moms that I can help the most. And I want to do that long term. I don't want a one-time consult to set you up and then you have questions 3 weeks from now and 2 months from now and 6 months from now and everything's changing and you don't know where to go. This is why the mental aspects of pumping are so much more than I originally thought when I got in this space. I really thought it was about reviewing breast pumps and finding the right one for you and the settings and a lot of the logistical things, creating a pumping schedule and things like that. All of those are important, but there is a huge mental component to pumping that I just had not realized before I really dived into this space and started working with moms closely inside of my program. And so take that as you will, right? It's more than logistics. You can't just have a great pump and a great schedule and expect for things to work. Sometimes they do, but I have found that the norm is that they don't. So if you're a working mom and you want some help, I would love to help you through this, make this easier. We want you to pump fast and efficiently. You don't have time to waste doing other stuff. So if that's you, there's a link in the description with a little video. You can learn more and schedule a call with my team. And we can help you from there. I hope this was helpful. And in closing, I just want to say, like, breast pumps don't inherently decrease your supply, right? But they will if you're not using them appropriately. So that's the whole point here, is we can use breast pumps to increase our supply, but using them incorrectly can also decrease your supply. And that's really the point that I wanted to make with this video, and hopefully give you some helpful tips on where to start, where to go to, so that this isn't you. Please don't let this be you. You're like me, where I use a pump and it decreased my supply. Don't do that. All right. I want to put that next video up top here for you to watch, which I think you will love. And we'll see you on the next video. Hopefully you subscribe so you get the next one. But we'll see you. Happy pumping.